Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the podcast in which we talk to people who are involved in independent music, whether it's punk, hardcore, indie rock, metal, emo, whatever you want to call it, as long as it is in small, sweaty rooms at some point, or people have been profoundly influenced by it and are creating different pieces of art around it. All of those things are important for me to be able to outline to you why this stuff is important to us, the collective us, as it were. But you're here because you want to hear those discussions. And I am thrilled to bring a friend of the show, a friend of myself from a human-to-human connection. His name is Patrick Piccolo. He played in a band called Embrace the End, which I will talk more about in a moment. But more importantly, he plays in a band called Caged View from the San Francisco, Oakland area, and has members of bands like Allegiance and Internal Affairs, Set Your Goals, and Skin Like Iron. If any of those band names resonate with you, then you are obviously in the right place. Or even if they don't, you can listen to this devoid of any context, and it rips. Their new EP that's coming out on GGT Records is called New Fuel for an Old Fire. And like I mentioned, I've known Patrick for years, and hearing his new band makes me incredibly happy because basically I would put this in the neighborhood of DC hardcore stuff, but it's a little heavier, got more edge to it, and I freaking love it. And it's so cool to be able to watch a person evolve musically over time and still care about this thing because, not everybody has to. Not everybody desires to continue to put out music in whatever way, shape, or form. So, like I mentioned, Patrick played in a band called Embrace the End. I worked with them when I worked at Century Media Records. I put out a couple of LPs from them. I loved that band. And they did a lot of great work in the, mid-aughts, I guess that's what we're calling it, where, the metallic hardcore scene. And that's what they did. They had two vocalists. They were 6-piece. They did a lot of cool touring, and I love the band because they were, politically influenced metalcore. I guess that's what we'll call it. But anyways. And above all that, Patrick also is a professional sign painter. And I know that maybe sounds like a made-up job title, but no joke. He does these amazing pieces of art for, local businesses and people looking to display their stuff either on a sign or a wall. And I've been watching him evolve that art form over the past, 7-8 years, if not longer. And it's been really cool to watch his journey there as well. So those are all the things we discuss. I realize it's a long preamble, but, I just wanted to give Patrick his flowers, so to speak, because I enjoy what he does as a human. So let's talk about the ways you can support the show, because this thing only exists because you care about it. I mean, I would be doing this by myself, probably in my room anyways, but because you listen to this, it, helps this whole thing go along. But if you want to spread the word, first of all, you can, of course, do that on social media. Just spread some episodes, be like, yo, love this discussion, or, whatever. I'm not going to tell you how to share stuff on social media. You get it. You can also email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I love to hear feedback, whether it's guest ideas, new music, whatever the case may be. Love to hear that. Bang that line. Also, for absolutely $0, you could support the show by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or just leave a rating on Spotify. All of those things truly do help this show get caught in the appropriate algorithm where the recommendations hit people and they're like, you know what? I will listen to an interview from this person. I will listen to this podcast. All those things help. So please do that. Also, you can listen to a weekly playlist where I've been recommending music for the better part of a year and a half of just stuff that I've tripped across, stuff that you should pay attention to in some capacity. And I've compiled a playlist. I toss those records in there, and that's what we do. So the record that I'm recommending this week is from a band called Dutch Interior. The record is called Moneyball, and it came out on Fat Possum just recently. Like, I think within the past 2 weeks. I had never heard of this band before. Saw it pop up on a couple, like new release lists and what have you. And Fat Possum I find to be such an interesting label because anytime that they put out something of the sort of indie rock variety, I'm like, that's interesting, because of course it could just come out on Anti and like all the other affiliated Epitaph record labels. This would never come out on Epitaph, but so I listened to it, and it's really, really good. I enjoyed it. It reminds me of like Wilco Duster, so it's kind of like a lo-fi indie rock, but then it kicks into high gear at some points, and I just was impressed with the band. And isn't it cool when you hear a band name that just like not takes your breath away? That sounds dramatic, but just is like, hey, that's a really cool band name, because we are existing in a world where bands have been naming themselves for the, 60, 70, 80 years. And when you hear a band like Dutch Interior, it's like, that's a cool band name. Way to go, guys. So yes, please check out that record. And like I said, I will include a link to the playlist in the show notes where you can listen along and just hopefully discover new music, because that is why we're all here. Okay, enough preamble. Let's talk to Patrick Piccolo from Caged View. And like I said, listen to his band. Caged View is really, really good, has a very cool thing going on. And you need to pre-order their EP that's coming out on GGT Records. So do that now, or do that after. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. You can do whatever the heck you want. Let's listen to Patrick right now. Where did I actually meet this person? And I definitely remember you playing, because correct me if I'm wrong, like I know Embrace the End and Beneath the Ashes, like you were playing in both of them, but Embrace the End started before, correct?
Technically, yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Okay. But I definitely remember like seeing Embrace the End play Showcase Theater in Corona, California. Yep. And I definitely remember being like, this band is cool. I really like them. And I think I forced you guys to be my friend just by saying that I worked at a record label and stuff like that. But what the question in this is not just to, walk down memory lane, but the connection that you have developed within the context of punk hardcore and everything else, it seems very true for you in ways that it is not true for many others, where, they kind of filter in and out or what have you, and, go on to other aspects of your life, or of their life. But it seems like for you, it's really like soaked into your DNA. Like, even though you're not going to as many shows as you once were or what have you, it embedded itself in you. Where do you think like that, I guess, embedding came from? Because, not everybody sticks to it like you have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I almost push back a little bit in saying that, because I really don't feel like I go to as many shows as like some of the
of course
true believers go to, or have continued to participate in the same way as I would have always liked to. But I mean, it's it's my social domain. It's like what I learned how to be a adult human doing. And so I feel like that's really, it's like real programming. Like, oh, you want to see some people, you feel like being sociable, you want to check out this new band, see like-minded people, you go to a show. You hear your friend say that they're going to go to a show, you're going to go, oh, okay, I'd like to see that friend and I'd like to see that band. That seems like a good opportunity to get out of the house or whatever. So I don't know if it really is any deeper than that. I think it helps that I live in Oakland and there's a lot of shows going on. I'm like 10 minutes from Gilman Street. Like there's always, I've never moved away from where stuff is happening. So I think, and it's also important to me. I don't want to downplay that. I think it's an important thing as far as my like personal identity is concerned too. Obviously, like growing up doing the vegan thing and the straight edge thing was totally influenced by going to shows. Like there's no doubt about that. And those things, are still important to me and have, dictated the course of my life. And, even my professional life, a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years are people that I met going to shows or playing in bands with and stuff. So there's no real start or stop to that. That's just it is what my life is and what I'm doing. So
Right. And I think that what I recognize in you and obviously many of like our friends and other peers is that it's clearly more than just like the surface level. Like, yes, to your point, it's the socialization, it's everything fun that we get attracted to when we're young. But then it's the adoption of, yes, it could be political beliefs, social beliefs, like all of the things that you adopt. But like for some of this stuff will be not, I wouldn't say embarrassing to you, but just being like, I'm heaping compliments on you, but I'm just like, you've always struck me as a person where it's been like, yeah, I'm going to be into this and I'm going to be like into this. Like, I'm not just going to, skirt around the edges. And
yeah.
Yeah, where does that, like, I guess the fact that you want to be, and not even just like on nerdy musical knowledge or whatever, but just like real deep stuff. Is that who you are as an individual where you're like, I can't just like dabble?
So I don't know if it's like a clinical obsessive like ADHD tendency or if like that's my actual personality or what. But like if I see something that I like and I appreciate it, I want to like dig deep, I guess. I want to do it, like I want to experience it to the fullest that I can experience that. And I think that's a real fair statement from you, like across the board. That's just kind of the way I roll with that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of attracted to that extreme of it. Yeah, boy.
Yeah. I know. I'm doing a little armchair psychology on you, but it's fine. It's fine. That, and I guess like dovetailing off that aspect as well. You have basically all of the music that you've created over the years has all had an attachment to not only self-expression, but being like, like you're trying to approach it from a more intellectual level as opposed to like simply singing about, emotions, which of course, clearly there's no problem with that. But where did that desire to express yourself like that, kind of, I know it evolves over time, but it's been a point of yours to explore that. Where do you think that kind of comes from as well?
Yeah, I think, like from the get-go, one of the things that I was attracted to about like punk and hardcore was, speaking out about things that you're passionate about, whether or not it's, something that some people might be embarrassed to be really screaming about, but like it's a genuine feeling and expressing genuine feelings. And for me, I've, always have and continue to have pretty strong, genuine feelings about, things that I feel are like unjust or unfair or, need to be addressed. Like I would feel like if I had any kind of soapbox that I should like mention this, because otherwise I would be remiss in not saying it. Like, whether or not it does any good, that's not really, the real rationale behind it. It's kind of like for yourself, almost like, cathartic cleansing, right? Like the whole exercise in extreme music is that like cleansing, for me at least. Like I'm, a lot of it I'm like physically like screaming too, and so that's helpful to find something that you feel like genuine about. And that's kind of where I've always come from like a lyrical standpoint. The bands that I have always been drawn to, I connect with in that way. Like, I can hear what they're producing, but I also can, like read the lyrics along with it and feel it in the same intensity that it's meant to. And that's the way that I've always like rolled as an artist, and trying to express myself in music and any of the art that I work on, like kind of like more of that baseline raw, like what am I feeling, and is this like something that's relatable, and then just kind of go from there. Like I of course want to try to be educated about the stuff I'm saying, and make sure that it's like real.
Sure.
But like the baseline of it is really just like talking about stuff that you feel passionate about, whether or not you're mad about it or happy about it, even that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, that makes sense. The kind of putting the focus on you as an individual, I know, were you actually born and raised in Northern California? I know these like are basic questions, but just yeah, I've never talked to you.
Yeah, I'm from all over the place, kind of, really. I actually was born in Wyoming, and I lived in Wyoming off and on until high school. I actually got into punk and hardcore living in Wyoming because my next door neighbors were Ray and Brandon Carlisle, who went on to form that band Teenage Bottle Rocket, like the most famous punk band from Wyoming.
From Wyoming. The only, yeah.
And so we would always go skateboarding together, and like they showed me like all the like Lookout Records bands and all the Rev bands, and like they're like, oh, you like Minor Threat? Check this band out, and that kind of stuff. Because I mean, they play a very specific kind of punk, but like super knowledgeable about like any punk band or any hardcore band that you could imagine. Like those kids knew music, and I still talk to Ray every once in a while, like when he's out and about. But yeah, so like, no, not from Northern California originally until high school. You still there? You froze up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we're back. Sorry about that. So yeah, no, not from Northern California.
You hearing me okay though?
Yes, I am. We're good now. Okay. That's first of all, that's hilarious because I mean, yeah, like you would never ever imagine being like, you know what? The origin story of my punk and hardcore journey is Wyoming.
Yeah, for sure. It's an unlikely path to discovering that kind of stuff. But yeah. And then moving to Northern California, I moved to Sacramento when we moved back from Wyoming, and that's when I met like a lot of the Embrace the End dudes in high school. So
right. And your family structure as you were growing up in Wyoming and then moving out was, brothers and sisters in the house, mom and dad? What was
just me and my mom? My dad lived in Denver for many, many years, so that was kind of like close to Wyoming. It was like a 2-hour drive to my dad. But my mom was going to grad school at the University of Wyoming, and so that's why we were living in Wyoming the second time. And then she came back for work and everything in Sacramento. So just me and my mom, pretty much most of my life.
I am so excited I get to interrupt this conversation because I love supporting the awesome companies that help this show keep running. And that is evilgreed.net. They are an amazing web store provider for bands and record labels of all shapes and sizes, but they have a very specific point of view, and that point of view is cool, heavy stuff. That is my own description. That is not theirs. But if you go to evilgreed.net, I guarantee you will like at least 90% of the bands that they work with because they have, like I said, a specific point of view. They're not open the doors to everybody. They say, hey, we like this stuff. Let's go. And they have exclusive colors of vinyl. They're based in Berlin, Germany, but fret not, you will be able to get it here in the United States, lickety split. I have a package en route to me as we speak, and it's taking 8-9 days to get to me, and the shipping rates are totally amazing and in our favor. So basically, it's not expensive for us to get it in the United States. And like I said, they offer exclusive colors of vinyl. They offer shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeves, so many great things. I love distros, and I have loved distros ever since I started to get into punk and hardcore. And ordering from evilgreed.net makes me feel that feeling of ordering from the Victory Records catalog or the Very Distro catalog for all you old heads. Or for your new heads, how about revhq.com? Oh, that's also an older reference possibly. But regardless, evilgreed.net has you covered. So order from them, get it shipped to you in the United States, and you'll love it. Or worldwide. They don't care where you live as long as they are able to ship it to you. So don't order it from North Korea because that is not going to happen. And if there's hardcore kids in North Korea, like I would love to know that, but I'm not going to. I digress. Evilgreed.net, amazing company. Support the supportive.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Wondery.
The idea of, being from these places that are, I mean, even though Sacramento is like not off the beaten path, like most people, like, yes, there are shows that happen there and there's culture there, but, it's not the central hubs, as it were. Obviously, it sounds like you had discovered, skating and that the subcultures of punk there. But how, did it take immediately? Did you like start to understand all of it?
What I was looking for. Like I started to discover certain things, but I distinctly remember hearing fucking Minor Threat and being like, this is the music that I've been looking for. These are the emotions that I've been looking for, and just connected right away. And it kind of went on from there.
Yeah. Did you, was skateboarding immediate as well? Like, were you into skateboarding and then music?
Yeah,
or
okay. For sure. I don't remember when the attraction started, but I remember wanting to like skate and be a skater from being like a really little kid. Just like seeing, kids in parking lots and stuff and being like, man, that is the coolest thing. Those kids look so cool. Like, and just like wanting to be that. And I didn't get a skateboard until 6th grade, I don't think. Maybe 5th grade. But I had wanted one for a long time before that. And then when I finally got that, like again, I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to be like skating every day, every second that I can, like learn as much about it as possible, get all the magazines, like do all the stuff. So yeah.
Right.
Dove into that.
Perfect. Yeah. As in everything else, there's no half measures with Patrick Piccolo.
Seems not. Yeah.
Did you, care about school? Was that something that you were invested in? Were you doing sports? Like what was
like I liked baseball. I, still appreciate baseball. And really didn't give a shit about school. I liked history. That was about it. But like, it was just kind of, this is what I have to do because the adults will be mad at me if I don't do this. I'd rather be skateboarding.
Sure.
But, I came to appreciate school as I got older and like learned how to be a student. I think I just kind of like felt lost a lot of the time when I was a little kid. even into high school. Like I was like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Like, I don't know, like just winging it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, until college. And I kind of figured out, oh, there's actually like a method to studying, and like there's structure that you can work within and figure how all this is supposed to work. But yeah, it's not
Right.
like, you know, a priority for me. I was into learning about things that I was excited about. I was good at self-education. If something like was interesting to me, I could, figure out how to learn more about it. But that was the end of that, you know, journey for me until college.
Right. Yeah. And that it's so funny because the moment, exactly what you're talking about, where you discover that you can, like literally research things on your own or look stuff up and like read biographies. And you're just like, why aren't they teaching this in school? It's like, what? This is so much more interesting or whatever. The autobiography of Malcolm X is way cooler than whatever it is we're reading in ninth grade or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Like, not even scratching the surface. It was almost like it was misdirection sometimes. I'm like, why are you talking about this right now? This is like not what we should be learning. I
Right.
I remember in high school, I I think it was my sophomore year. I must have been like extra angsty that year, because I was like always disruptive in my high school history class, to the point where my teacher was like, "Oh, why don't you teach class for a day?" Like just kind of like as an eye roll. And so he gave
Sure.
me a day to prepare. And then I came in and did a presentation on the Zapatistas the next day. And like he was just like, that was pretty good. All right.
Right.
And, yeah.
Cool.
Like their questions, like, brought like I think like I brought a Brujeria record or something, and like yeah,
Amazing.
like
And I love those specific examples when you are given the opportunity and authorship for showing, whatever, civilians, peers, just being like, hey, like, this is what I'm into. This is what you should be, whether it's like playing a song or what, like, it just, you feel so cool because you're like, I'm coming in prepared. And then most people look at you like you're an alien, where you're just like, what do you,
yeah.
yeah, Brujeria records? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what is
But
that?
again, at the same time, like at that age, my world was expanding. Like my peer group, I wasn't identifying so much with the kids I went to school with anymore. You're going to shows and you're seeing other people that you fit in with more, in this like kind of, pre-internet, early internet time period where like you are also at me at that age, early high school, kind of coming out of your shell and seeing the whole world as like things that you can be a part of in ways that you never even were able to think of before. um you gain this kind of confidence that you can be like, oh, like I can actually disagree with what you're saying. And, I always knew emotionally that what you were saying was incorrect or didn't fit. But now, like intellectually, I also see the bigger picture here and I can share that with you. And like that, that's, that was a big moment for me, as a kid growing up, that the catalyst was definitely you know punk and hardcore music and skateboarding, to like get me out into the world to see the world in a different way, like from a bigger perspective and where I fit. And I didn't have to fit in with the world that I was like put in, if that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the presentation of the not only like what you're talking about, the options that you are given within, like, oh, this is a choose your own adventure story, and like I'm on the path of this now as opposed to this, but it's that I love what you spoke about, the confidence, because you do. I mean, when you start to walk into those, shows, when you walk into West Coast Worldwide for the first time, you're terrified and you're like, Mikey Hood, like, who's this? This is a whole thing. Like, you, but then as you start to be like interacting with these people, and you're just like, oh, like, I know a 25-year-old and I'm 16, and I'm like, this is way cooler than what I'm experiencing in high school.
Right. Yeah. Like if if those kids I went to school with only knew.
Totally. And it's just like, and I'm sure you experienced it where it's like, once you started to, go to shows, play shows, play in bands and stuff like that. And then people would just be like, what'd you do over whatever Easter break? And it was just like, oh, I went to Reno. And they're like, what'd you do there? played a show? What does that mean?
And I also played a show in Winnemucca in a parking lot. So
Totally.
Awesome. It was the best day of my life.
I love that. And so as you were, bringing this stuff home to your mom, was she ever concerned with the stuff that you were, getting into and like all of the ideas that you were, most likely expressing that was probably like a little maybe scary for her, or was she all on board?
Oh, she was totally freaked out. Pretty much my young childhood, early adolescence. I think as I got a little bit older, she was less freaked out, I hope. I don't know. But
she might still be.
Yeah, she might still be freaked out. It's hard to know. But yeah, not a lot of support for a lot of it, and a lot of like her like questioning aesthetics of the culture, a lot of her questioning like the lyrical content, and like whether or not veganism was a cult was a conversation. And my cousin was from Salt Lake City, and so the concept of straight edge was a thing within the family. There was not a whole lot of understanding, and probably not a lot of effort on my part to educate my mom. I think maybe I was even antagonizing and trying to freak her out a little bit with some of it, like showing her some of like, oh, Mom, check out this new Filth record I got. This song's about shooting heroin. What do you think of that? Like, and just, like just freaking her out. But yeah, I think as I got older, and especially once I started doing, stuff with bands, and she realized that like, it was mostly productive, positive stuff to be doing. We were mostly not getting in a lot of trouble. She was happier about it. And, with, share little bits of it with her friends or my grandparents and stuff like that. So there was support later on, but early on, I remember her being just worried about it. Like and I think a lot of it was just her not understanding. And I think as a parent, I understand it a little bit more because I don't think she wanted to be judged based on like what I looked like. 'Cause for a while, she was worried that I looked like a Nazi skinhead. Like a big topic of conversation. I'm like, well, like trying to educate your mom about skinhead culture when like I'm not even a skinhead and I'm like 14 or something, like it's not going to go over very well. But that's like one thing that I really remember. She got really mad that I shaved my head before we went on a trip to England and Holland, and she was worried that people were going to think that I was a skinhead.
Sure. It's like, what'd you do, Patrick?
Conversation, yeah. Like she was so mad about that. And I think she made me wear a hat the whole time we were there, and like was just disappointed.
Totally. And you're like, but this is coming from an authentic place. Like you are scared that I am, a racist skinhead. Right. It's like, yeah, you don't know.
Let me teach you about this, Mom. No, she's like, no, let me tell you.
Totally, child. Yeah. And then a couple years later, you're coming home with stretched ears and tattoos, and then she's like, "What's happening now?"
Exactly. She's like, the shaved head was fine. Just
like, yeah. Can we go back to that? Me thinking you're a skinhead.
Yeah.
The like you were talking about the trajectory of starting to go to more shows and start to experience the world outside of yourself and seeing like these different scenes and stuff. As you started to experience the Sacramento scene, because I mean that is definitely a very unique scene.
Yep.
What did you, what kind of drew you in, or what could you articulate once you're able to see the differences between like what was happening in Sacramento and then obviously once you started to experience other scenes? So yeah, it's kind of a two-part. What was your experience as you first started to attend, and what was the difference that you noticed as you started to get out?
Yeah, I think, first went to more like punk shows, like kind of like the bigger punk bands were. And then I kind of slowly started discovering like the hardcore scene. And that was like what I felt was more authentic, I guess. Like, I think that's what I was attracted to ultimately. Like, looking back at it, like, I think that I was like, whoa, this is real. Like, what's happening at these shows feels real. Like, it was a little bit scary. Like, you didn't quite know what was going on. The music was like way angrier, and like I just was like, this is the real shit. And I think Sacramento was interesting at that time because there were a lot of boneheads that would come to shows at like the early 90s, and then there was like this crazy like skinhead war between the sharps and the boneheads that happened like probably right before I really started going to shows. And like there was like even like an actual like murder and crazy shit that happened. But needless to say, the Sharps kind of won that battle. And so like all of these skinheads were at all of the hardcore and punk shows kind of as like monitors to make sure that no boneheads got in. And I thought that was just like the coolest fucking shit. Like, I'm like, those dudes are scary. I don't totally relate to everything that they got going on, but like, they want to keep the Nazis out of the shows, and that's rad.
Right.
Yeah, and that was like a very like distinctly Sacramento thing, because then you start going to, like you're saying, you go to shows other places. Even coming down here to San Francisco, the Boneheads would still roll through. Like even in like the late 90s, you would hear about like crazy stuff happening with conflicts when skinheads would come to hardcore shows. I'm trying to remember what was like the most. There's like a scene lore up here in NorCal about one show where Sammy the Mick, like there's a picture of him like holding a bar or something about to like beat up this crazy skinhead at the Cocodrie. And the bands, like I don't even remember who was playing at that show. I'm sure a million people can chime in and knows exactly where they were standing when that was happening.
Sure.
But like, I don't know. I feel like there was more violence up here at that time. I mean, I wasn't experiencing what was going on in like New York and places like that, or even down in Orange County. I know there was violence down there too in the 90s. But like it all felt just like real, and people were, not just espousing like principles and ideas. They were actually like doing something about it. Like, it's the same stuff that attracted me to like, direct action for animal rights and that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I have the agency to actually stand up for what I think is right. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I
question it all, actually, now that.
No, you did. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's this, I mean, everybody, when they're getting into their local scene or whatever, experiences some level of, scariness. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but like this seems weird, violent, interesting. But I do think there's something distinct about the sort of small town nature of Sacramento, where it's like, the only way that this scene can continue to exist is if we police it appropriately, where it doesn't get run over.
For sure. And I remember like one of the other things that I thought was cool was that there was a lot of mixed bill shows. So you would have a band like Filibuster, which was a ska band, and Pressure Point, and like the Hoods open up for a touring band like, Earth Crisis. And then like Will Haven would end up on the bill too somehow because they were the other band in Sacramento. Like,
yep.
And so that was like a cool way to like see even more stuff, other scenes that were going on. So, and I don't know if that was necessarily just the time or the time and place or what, but that was like my early experience at shows there.
Yeah, yeah. And I think to answer your question, like I think it is a time, but it's also a place as well, where it's like when you don't have as many options of bands to play with, it's not like you're like, oh well, Earth Crisis is coming through. Here's our 7 vegan straight edge bands. You're just like, do you guys have instruments? Are you somewhat attached to the scene? You can play.
Do you guys have a name? Can we put you on the flyer?
Totally. And then 20 years later, people are going to look at this and be like, what? Get Up Kids played with Spaz? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Chirp, 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 chirp. What's that outside? Chirp, 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 chirp. Oh, that's right. It's springtime. And you know what that means? You got to clean stuff out. You got to throw things that are sitting in your closet that are just like, dude, I need to donate this or I need to recycle this. And that is where rockabilia.com comes into play. You knew it was coming, right? Longtime sponsors of the show want you to save 10% off your entire order, 100 words or less. That's the number 100 words or less. Gets you 10% off your order. And that is why springtime is the best time to order more stuff. When you've cleaned out your closet, you got a lot of extra hangers and you're like, I need band merch. I need some cool new long sleeves or sweaters to be able to, prepare for the fall season. Because, when you shop for the fall in the spring, obviously, I mean, I'm a fashion aficionado and I know you are as well. All joking aside, they are an independently owned and operated company here in the Midwest of the United States of America. And they ship stuff out to you lickety split. And they have bands of all denominations, whether you're into like the Beatles and Grateful Dead, or whether you're like, Bring Me the Horizon's my favorite band, or how about Sleep Token, or how about, Ghost. Like if you like music in general, you will be able to find stuff from them and then also be able to buy gifts for your friends and family and get it all at one spot. And it's all officially licensed. That means the bands get paid, you get high quality merchandise, and everybody wins in this scenario. So go to rockabilia.com and use the promo code 100 words or less right now for your awesome order. So boing. What? Boing? That's not right. Chirp, chirp. There we go. There's the bird. Spring has sprung. Let's go. Order merch.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.
When you first started to, have a desire to, put a band together and start to experience this, because, how I've always known you to be is a very, you're soft-spoken. You're not the guy that's like walking into a room and being like, what's up? I'm Patrick, everybody. Like, you're not that scene stealer, as it were. And so, and it's funny because a lot of people have that vibe and then they end up, singing for a band because they feel like they can, exercise that, everything what you're talking about earlier. Was it comfortable for you to, start to get in front of people and like yell into a microphone, or did you have to, I guess, ramp your way up to it?
I think I was really ready to do it at the time. Like I really wanted to do it. And it just kind of worked out that everybody else that I was hanging out with at the time was cool with it. I don't even, like nobody, I don't even remember like, talking about it. Like we're like, okay, let's start a band. They're like, cool. So you're going to sing and I'm going to play. Like, it was just kind of like how it started out. But yeah. And I think my comfort level, evolved over the years when it was like a not so serious thing that you're doing in high school. Like you can just kind of, I don't even think I thought about it, right? Like you're just like, oh, this is going to be super fun. I can do that. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, I should probably take this a little seriously because I'm like putting a lot of my time and energy into this. And then, you're like, well, I, should probably, work on some stage banter or something. I think about that kind of stuff a little bit.
Right.
I've never been like feeling like I needed to like change myself when I get on stage, like, put on the mask or whatever, or like,
Play a character.
cosplay it. It's just an activity, as it were, when you get up there, and an opportunity, an excuse to like, be that dude who's taking the spotlight for a second, even though it's not my like normal personality to want to do that, but it's all part of that like self-expression and cathartic state of the extreme music experience. Like, to get into it, you want other people around you to get into it. You want to just like do the thing.
Of course.
How I've always looked at it. And even when I there was like a good chunk of time where I wasn't doing a band, like I think it was like a 10-year period where I wasn't doing anything at all with music, and like I really missed it, and I couldn't really like pinpoint it until I started doing it again, and I was just like I no longer had that like that release that was really important to me. And then when I found it again, I was like, oh yeah, it's actually like a balancing thing. Like that's like what keeps me that like calm guy that can kind of like observe and talk and not need to be the center of attention. Like it helps you balance. So.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, to your point too, sometimes like, it has to go away in some capacity for you to, remember why you missed it. And then you do it again and you're like, that's right. I remember I enjoyed it.
For sure. Yeah. And that was like, a lot of what was happening with Embrace the End. It became, very exhausting. We're like, yeah, we can tour nonstop. That'll be fine. That's what we want to do. And then a year and a half into it, you're like physically ill. Like, I don't think people realize how hard that is, especially if you're like a poor band and you're living off of, Taco Bell once a day and then whatever food you can eat at the venue, and driving, another 8-hour drive to the next show or whatever. Like it was physically taxing on everybody, not to mention just like mentally taxing. And you're like, this is supposed to be enjoyable? Like,
right.
What's happening here? Like,
this seems like an endurance test. Yeah.
I think we were like too young to realize that like, oh, you can be in control of this. You can modulate this. You don't have to just fucking do this like, 100% or whatever. I mean, you can do it 100%, but do it in like a more reasonable way. I don't
totally. No, well, yeah, I think that at that time, up until truthfully, probably the last, I would say, whatever, we'll call it 5 to 7 years, where it was like bands now have, and artists in general have the ability to not only control what it is that they're doing and whether it's their output musically or whether it's just the, rat race that you can go on where it's like, I have to play 250 shows a year. Otherwise I'm not doing the
right.
work, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah. Which is ridiculous. Like, like that's not sustainable for most normal people.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you are a hardened road warrior, it's like there are times that you clearly have to like recharge, and like that wasn't an option at that point.
Yeah, not at all. Just kind of burning it at both ends. Like, yeah, I don't even know how we survived some of that. Like, honestly, like.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many. I mean, I look at like, us and our, larger peer group and all the bands that we existed in the 2000s. And it's like, yes, you have the cases you can point to where there were, tragic van accidents and all that sort of stuff. But I'm like, statistically, I'm like, there should have been way more.
Like, yeah, like I'm blown away. And again, like I think about it as a parent now too. Like I would never let my kid ride like in the cargo section of this van without a seatbelt when they haven't slept for 24 hours. And like, that was just a dangerous situation. Like that's ridiculous that was just normal life. Like, I don't know.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the, the youthful ignorance that exists where it's just like we'll be okay. We'll be fine.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah. Like way too many calls.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Constantly. The, so the act of, when Embrace the End and you started to, because it's funny, and I'm sure you've experienced some level of this where it's like people are music goes in cycles. There's nostalgia for early 2000s stuff in ways that, I know makes both you and I just be like, this is really funny that you care about, like the fact that I can mention the words Embrace the End and like a 16-year-old kid would be like, dude, that band's so sick. Like, why do you remember this? I guess for how, your guys' approach was definitely always a band that was, for lack of a better term, and whether you were articulating this internally, like you were, intelligent metalcore, where it was like, there was always like, I mean, especially with, the Ley Lines record, where it's like the messages that you were trying to put across were definitely not, conventional by any stretch of the imagination. And so that, I guess that, intelligence aspect, like, I guess kind of going back to the, doing your own research and like, direct action, like all the things that you were kind of drinking in, the question in there is the fact that like that's clearly a deliberate thing that you guys were doing. And was that like you and obviously the other vocalist Jesse, was that like I guess part and parcel, you guys were like, well, yes, this is the overall theme of the band, whether you were discussing it or just bring your lyrics together to be like, this is what we're doing?
Yeah, I think we were not necessarily trying to like pigeonhole ourselves into like, we're going to be a political band or something like that. I think we were concerned about being authentic, and making sure what we were talking about wasn't just because it like seemed cool or sounded cool or what was on par with what like other bands that we liked were doing. I think we were fortunate in that we had the foresight to be thinking about that, I think, and like kind of checking in with each other about what it is that we were trying to say and like what new stuff we were trying to bring to the world and whether or not like that really felt authentic to us. And so that was important. And I think that was more of the theme of the band. 'Cause I think, under that guise, you have like a lot of space to really be expressive and, emote your feelings in that like really aggressive, media, that really aggressive style that we were. And I think it worked. Like I don't look back and like cringe on anything that we did, and that feels good.
Totally. Yeah. That truly is, like if you're not embarrassed by, a large portion of your previous musical output, you'd be like, hey, like that's not too bad.
I'm not feeling super. Yeah, I'll take that.
Totally. I wanted to hit on the, like you were talking about in regards to, your artistic career, your sign painting and everything you've been doing over the past, like, because you've been sign painting now for the better part of 10 years, right?
Yeah. I started doing it when I was actually still working at FSAP. I started doing an apprenticeship. So that was 2014. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And it's really funny. Like I remember once I started to, see you publicly out there doing that and being like, oh yeah, hey, this is my life and my career now. It like, not only did it hit a part of my brain where I was just like, oh, that's like the most perfect thing for Pat. I was like, that's such a Pat thing to do. I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, you like graffiti back in the day, like, oh, of course. Like this is just a, more mature version of it. When you started to, practice that discipline, what itch did it scratch, I guess, inside your brain? Did it like feel connected to the sort of musical output, or was this just like a completely different part you were exercising?
No, I mean, I think it's all connected with me. I feel like when I, stopped doing the Embrace the End full time and wanted to like finish school and see like what I could do to be like an adult, like what kind of like career path I could have. I was like, okay, like I tried, a bunch of different shit. Like I was a bike messenger for a long time and had my own courier company. And then, I just like, oh, I really actually like to work on bikes too. And so I was a bike mechanic for a while. And then, doing the PETA work was like, oh, okay, let's try this like more adult job where like maybe I can like do these big things that I feel, ethically, tied to and what could be important on a bigger scale. But it was also really like limiting in like what you're doing. Like you're sitting at a computer all day and like
it's an email job.
Doing like, one thing. You're like part of someone else's vision about how that should go, which is always a bummer, kind of like, even if you are aligned with most of it, like there was a part of it that always felt a little like, for me about it. Like, so I was happy to check in with myself during that time period and be like, okay, like, what do I want to be doing? I want to be doing something with my hands. Like, like what is something that I can be like creating with? Like, I feel like creating and like doing has always been important to me. And I definitely didn't feel like I was doing that prior to like kind of finding this. And I think also just kind of being into, exploring odd histories and like disappearing histories. I was talking to a tattooer friend of mine in maybe like 2004 or something. And he was like, mentioned to me, he's like, there's 3 artists that the world doesn't give a shit about. It's tattoo artists, graffiti artists, and sign painters. And I was like, whoa, sign painters are still a thing? And then like, I started to look around and noticing it more. And then there's actually been kind of like a resurgence in the art as like our generation has realized that was disappearing, and realized that like if they're trying to, sell or like serve whatever their like authentic service is or product, like they didn't want to just have like some shitty computer generated sticker to like advertise that. And so I think it all kind of comes together on the bigger level like that. Like, let's take, I'm doing something that is important to me that requires like, a specialized human touch, and I want to express that, in the same way. So I'll get a sign painter to paint my sign instead of printing some shit out. It's like more like communicative in that way, I guess. Like it's got more individuality and authenticity. I'm overusing that word authenticity today. It's just but it
if
is.
the shoe fits.
I mean,
shoe fits. Yeah.
Strive to do, like, I want to at least be keeping myself in check, making sure that I'm behaving true to myself in an authentic way. So
Yeah. And what I think is really, I mean, it's cool and inspiring to hear you articulate that vision and how it connects to, everything of who you are as a person. Cause I think it's so easy for many people to get lost in the sauce of their artistic expression of being like, I can't do this because this isn't, popular, or this isn't a thing. I need to, go with the times or whatever. But just being like, no, like there's, as long as you can find, your lane, and it doesn't need to be a huge lane. Like clearly, you've been like, well, yeah, I'm like the sign painter in Northern California. Like, this is what I can do, and but then ultimately tying it back to like there's this, this DIY discipline that's at the core of it, where it's like you have to put in the work in order to like get good at it. The same way bands, tattoo art, all that stuff.
Yep. It's not something that happens overnight. Like, I feel really fortunate every day that this is, what I get to do. But, it hasn't always been super easy. Like I've had to, work other jobs while I was, learning and taking on, work slowly and building up my business like anything else. But like to be able to like, be doing this and be as busy as I am, like I wake up every day like legitimately grateful and hope it can continue, knock on wood. Who knows what happens, but
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to what you were talking about, the not playing music for many years, and then ostensibly the reason that we are here is the Caged View stuff. And I remember when you started to push that out there, and when I say push it out there, like it makes it sound like you're like, oh, here's social media strategy. Like, no, this is just like, oh yes, I'm recognizing my friend is playing in a new band, and that's cool. Because like you said before, you didn't know what you missed until you started to do it again, and now you're at the juncture where it's like, putting out records, playing shows, like doing all the things that, most normal bands do. You don't necessarily need to do that, but there's clearly a push for you to not only document the stuff, but then, get the thing out there. Yeah. Does it feel, I guess, different with this sort of, at the age you're at, any sort of like, clarity? Like, does it feel different than, dumb Patrick running around the country yelling?
Yeah, totally. It feels way different. It feels like there's way less pressure. It feels like less of an unknown. Like I have kind of a better understanding on what I want to do with it and, how things work. Like that all feels just like less of a mystery and more obtainable and like it can just fit in my life in ways where it doesn't have to be the dominant thing in my life. I think for a long time when I was like really doing bands, like that was like what I was doing. Like I would do other stuff on the side, like, I was into painting graffiti and, into activism and stuff like that. But like the main thing I was doing was the band stuff. And so it's nice to be able to kind of like do this band with other people who are kind of on the same page as far as like, this can be a slow process. Like, we've been doing this band since I've been a part of it since 2000 or 2022. And, it had been a project with Dwayne and Joey before that, them just trying to write some songs. And so it's like, that's a long time now. Like, you know what I mean? That's like five-ish years. And, we've put out a demo and an EP. Played a handful of shows. We're happy if we practice once a month. So,
right. The pressure is not
but
there.
That's the speed that we want to do it at. And it's like super enjoyable. It's fun to be able to have a project and be like, oh, do you guys want to do this show? Totally. Let's do that show. Great. And that's
right.
Like, it's fun.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What struck me about the band as well is like you're putting some pipes behind there. You're singing in ways that obviously are different than what you did in the past. Where I mean, there's still the yelling, as it were, but
it's a
was that
yeah
right? Did it were you I guess like nervous when you first started to do that, to be like, all right, I'm going to like push this in a way that I've never done before?
I don't know if I was nervous, but I was reluctant to try. Dwayne had been trying to get me to do this for a while. And like, I think the first time he messaged me, like I straight up just kind of like ignored him, even though like I would see him writing every once in a while and stuff. I would like respond about other things. I was just like, oh, I don't know if that's a thing that I can do. And he had to hit me up a couple of times about it. Like, hey, do you still want to try to do this project? And basically he was like, look, we have these demo songs with no vocals. Like, what do you think? And I think that really planted that was like the hook for me. I was like, okay, I'll listen to these songs. And like immediately I was like, oh, I have an idea. I don't know if my voice can actually sound like that. Like, I'll try to do it. And then that was that. We had a couple of practices and recorded our demo. And I was like, oh, I'm happy with how that turned out. I've never sang like that before. Like, cool.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like, I guess we're a band, and I guess I'm like, yell singing now. Like, this is great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The last thing I'll put you on the spot for is the idea, like, going to or diving into your sign painting aspect. I know if I'm asking you, like, what your favorite sign or piece is, it's like choosing children. You can't do that.
Right.
But I'm asking you to choose a child of a piece of work, big, small, anything in between, that you're like, wow, I can't believe either I got hired to do this, or I can't believe that, like, this idea actually came out, like, appropriately. Whatever way you want to take it, but what's a piece that you are, very proud of, that you're like, this not only looks sick, and I'm happy that this exists.
Yeah, I think I'm really proud of all the work that I've done for RJ for Timeless. Because that, like, speaks to, like, a really fun collaboration that we can have. Over the years, like, I've had, like, a lot of clients that are just kind of like, do what you think is best here. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll, push myself to do stuff that was, like, maybe a little bit beyond my skill level, but, like, I was able to, like, rise to the challenge and do it. There's, like, a lot of, like, delicate gold leaf on glass stuff that I like to do, which is really finicky and frustrating and takes a long time, and you're working with really expensive materials, so you don't want to fuck it up. And, like, there was this one specific barbershop sign that I did for a barbershop called Diablo Barber Co. And it was, like, a really huge gold leaf window sign. Like, I think it was about 4 feet wide. And that's probably to this day one of my favorite ones that I've done, because I was just able to kind of do whatever I wanted. I did this, like split shade drop shadow where it, like, faded from darker to lighter. And then I had, like, 2 different tones of gold leaf for the center part of the lettering. And, like, that's still to this day one of my favorite ones. So
that's really cool. Do you are you part of a sign painter subreddit? Like, do you guys have a group text across the country? Like, how does the community support itself?
Yeah, unsurprisingly, a lot of old punk and hardcore kids. So it's like, oh, I knew you from shows, or I knew you from painting graffiti. And you're like, oh, yeah, of course, this is who we are. Like, yeah. So, like, I chat with, like, a lot of folks. There's Ross, who is Surehand Signs in Richmond, Virginia, who's, like, an old punk. And my buddy Ken Davis used to go to a lot of shows. I met him going to shows here in NorCal before we even were painting signs. But we stay in touch, and then just, like, other like-minded people doing the trade, like, trying to make a living doing this work. So
yeah, no, it's really, I've just always viewed it like, whether it's tattooing or whether it's the work that you're doing, it's obviously, it's just like a grown up version of graphing the side of trains. Like, it's like,
yeah. I'm hopefully bringing up property value instead of bringing it down, and getting paid for it.
Right. And it's, I mean, in the long arc of history, as you're watching these things unfold to where it's like, people are paying top dollar for graffiti artists to hit walls now. And you're just like,
what a work.
You would, I know. You're like, you would have potentially shot a person at one point for this.
Yeah.
There you have it. Huge shout out to Pat for coming on the show, and huge shout out to GGT Records for bringing this idea to the table. And I was like, oh my gosh, of course I would love to talk to my old friend in music. And we did it, and it's awesome. So listen to Caged View and pre-order that EP on GGT Records immediately. I have done it, and I look forward to receiving it. Next week is, of course, another great conversation. Can you believe it? I just keep coming. All joking aside, I have Sean Ingram from his new band called Idle Airs, and also from Coalesce. Like, come on. I was so bummed. I recently missed them as they came through Southern California on a nice little, I guess, reunion gigs. I mean, they play, once every 10 years or so. But Sean and I discussed or hopped on the podcast many moons ago, probably 8-9 years ago. And his Idle Airs project is so damn good. It's coming out on Relapse Records, and I got the opportunity to speak to him again, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do this, because a lot of time has happened in between the last time I had Sean on the podcast. So that's what we're doing tomorrow, or not tomorrow. How about next week, right? Yeah, that's what we do this. Until next week, please be safe, everybody.